In the year 2475, by the Galactic Standard Calendar, there existed a peculiar corner of space that the great civilizations of the Milky Way rarely bothered to notice. This region, colloquially known as the backwaters of the galaxy, contained sparse star systems deemed unworthy of serious attention by the major powers. Yet it was here, in this unremarkable sector, that a young species had been quietly developing. Croc slithered along the observation deck of the interstellar transit station, his gelatinous body undulating with nervous excitement. As an artist from the slug-like Zindari species, Croc had spent his entire career searching for novel inspirations across the galaxy. The rumors that had recently rippled through the cosmic grapevine were too tantalizing to ignore. A new intelligence had supposedly broadcast its entire cultural and biological database into the void, an act of either profound naivety or unfathomable confidence. "You're wasting your time," gurgled the station keeper, a multi-limbed Graxtol whose 6 eyes barely looked up from the hollow display. "Those Terrans won't last another cycle. The Katanaki already have their war fleet mobilizing." Croc's epidermis rippled with disagreement. "That's precisely why I must document them now. If the rumors are true, their art forms are unlike anything we've catalogued." The Graxtol's tentacles waved dismissively. "Cataloging the dead, that's all you'll be doing." Croc paid the cynical keeper no mind. The galaxy was home to hundreds of vastly different species, from the primitive to the godlike, and in his 200 years of life, he had learned that the most fascinating specimens were often those on the precipice of either extinction or ascension. These Terrans, or humans as they called themselves, seemed poised for one of those fates. The question was, which? The transit station hummed with activity as traders, mercenaries, and diplomats from dozens of worlds rushed about their business. Most were discussing the same topic: the foolish species that had just announced its presence to the cosmos by broadcasting everything about itself. Their biology, their history, their art, their wars, their dreams and fears, all transmitted in an omnidirectional signal that any moderately advanced civilization could intercept and decode. In the central atrium, Croc noticed a holographic display showing what appeared to be a Terran visual transmission. He slithered closer, joining a small crowd of diverse beings gazing with curiosity, amusement, or predatory interest at the images flickering in the air. "Look at those eyes," whispered a harbinger merchant, whose own species possessed nothing but sensory pits. "So expressive, yet so vulnerable." "Their orbital defenses are negligible," remarked a Serini commander to his subordinate. "We could harvest their entire water supply in under a lunar cycle." A Kokoi information broker, tiny in stature but feared for her vast network of spies, chittered softly. "Their genetic diversity alone would fetch millions on the Umbukuda markets, and those cultural artifacts, priceless." Croc absorbed these comments with growing unease. The Terran Union, as they had named their fledgling interstellar collective, had unwittingly painted a target on themselves by revealing everything. In the harsh reality of galactic politics, information was currency, secrets were power, and naivety was an invitation to exploitation. The transit station suddenly shuddered as a massive vessel decelerated nearby. Through the transparent walls of the atrium, Croc could see the distinctive silhouette of a Katanaki dreadnought, one of the most feared warships in the galaxy. Its obsidian hull seemed to absorb the light of the nearby star, creating an ominous void against the cosmic backdrop. "It begins," the Graxtol station keeper announced with grim satisfaction. "First the Katanaki, then the Serini, then whoever else wants the leftovers. That's how it always goes with the new ones who don't know to keep quiet." Croc felt a pang of sadness. The galaxy was about to lose something potentially beautiful before it had a chance to fully bloom. What he didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that the Terran Union's seeming naivety was about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The Katanaki were the first to arrive in the Sol system, home of humanity. Their fleet of 2,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel on the outskirts of the system, a tactical formation perfected over millennia of conquest. The Katanaki, resembling bipedal reptilians with metallic scales and cybernetic enhancements, had subjugated dozens of younger species throughout their long history. Humans would be just another footnote in their imperial records. Admiral Vosarak stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, studying the holographic representation of the human homeworld. Primitive defenses, he noted with amusement. A few hundred orbital platforms, projectile weaponry, and early-stage energy shields. They've barely taken their first steps into space. His second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Krell, nodded in agreement. Their transmission indicated they've only achieved interstellar travel within the last century. They're practically infants. And yet, Vosarak mused, they broadcast everything about themselves, their weaknesses, their strengths, their emotional attachments, their biological vulnerabilities. He turned to face Krell, his cybernetic eye glowing with cold calculation. Either they are suicidally naive, or what, Admiral? Or they know something we don't. Vosarak dismissed the thought with a wave of his clawed hand. No matter. Begin the standard subjugation protocol. Let's see how quickly they surrender when faced with our full might. The Katanaki fleet advanced toward Earth, their communication systems broadcasting demands for immediate surrender in all human languages, courtesy of the data the humans themselves had provided. The message was simple: submit or be eradicated. The response came not in words, but in action. As the Katanaki fleet crossed the orbit of Mars, 30% of their ships suddenly vanished from sensor. No explosions, no distress signals. They simply ceased to exist. Confusion rippled through the remaining fleet as commanders desperately tried to understand what had happened. Admiral, Krell's voice was tight with stress, we've lost 600 vessels. No debris, no radiation signatures, nothing. Vosarak's reptilian features contorted in disbelief. Impossible. Scan again. Before Krell could comply, another wave of ships disappeared. Then another. Within minutes, the mighty Katanaki armada was reduced to just the flagship and a handful of escorts. Retreat! Vosarak finally ordered, his pride shattered by incomprehensible fear. Full reverse. Get us out of this system. As the remaining Katanaki ships turned to flee, something appeared on their sensors, thousands of small objects moving at incredible speed toward their position. Moments later, the objects revealed themselves to be primitive nuclear weapons. Technology the Katanaki had abandoned centuries ago as inefficient and crude. The nuclear barrage engulfed the retreating ships in a series of blinding flashes. When the energy dissipated, not a single Katanaki vessel remained. Back at the transit station, news of the Katanaki fleet's total destruction sent shockwaves through the galactic community. No one could explain how a supposedly primitive species had annihilated one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. It must be a mistake, insisted a Harbinger diplomat. Perhaps a natural phenomenon, a spatial anomaly or a previously unknown defense mechanism in that star system. Others were not so quick to dismiss the humans' role. They wanted us to think they were helpless. A Sereni strategist theorized. The transmission was bait. They showed us everything except their true military capabilities. Croc listened to these theories with growing fascination. If the humans had deliberately misled the galaxy about their technological level, what else might they be hiding? And more importantly, why reveal themselves at all? His artistic curiosity overrode his caution. He began searching for a way to get closer to the human territory, not to exploit or conquer, but to understand. The artistic implications alone were staggering. A species that could craft such an elaborate deception might create art forms beyond imagination. Meanwhile, the Sereni Collective, undeterred by the Katanaki's fate, decided to attempt a more subtle approach. Rather than a frontal assault, they dispatched infiltration vessels, sleek, stealth-capable ships designed to penetrate planetary defenses undetected. The Sereni, with their chameleonic skin and ability to mimic other life forms, were the galaxy's premier spies and assassins. We will succeed where the Katanaki failed. Archon-Zivix assured the Collective's ruling council. They relied on brute force. We shall use finesse. 50 Sereni vessels entered the Sol system 3 months after the Katanaki disaster, moving silently through the void. their advanced cloaking technology rendering them invisible to conventional sensors, or so they believed. One by one, the Serenity ships went dark. No distress calls, no final transmissions, just silence. After 2 weeks, when not a single vessel had reported back, the Serenity Collective was forced to accept that their infiltration had failed as completely as the Kadanaki's invasion. Fear began to spread among the galactic powers. How could a young species possess technology capable of detecting and neutralizing both the Kadanaki's overwhelming force and the Serenity's unparalleled stealth? The Umbukudo Trade Federation, seeing potential profit where others saw only danger, decided on yet another approach. Instead of military action, they would attempt diplomatic contact, offering technology and alliance in exchange for exclusive trade rights to human biological data, which was highly valued in certain markets. Their diplomatic vessel, unarmed and broadcasting peaceful intentions, approached Earth with a delegation of the Federation's most skilled negotiators. The humans allowed them to establish orbit and even invited the delegation to descend to the planet's surface. The Umbukudo delegates never returned to their ship. The diplomatic vessel, after waiting in orbit for the standard protocol period of 7 days, departed the Sol system with no information other than a cryptic message from the human authorities. We warned them. What the message meant, no one knew. What had happened to the delegation remained a mystery that the Umbukudo Federation was unwilling to investigate further. By now, a year had passed since humanity's initial broadcast, and the galaxy was abuzz with speculation and fear. The humans had defeated or rebuffed every approach, whether hostile or peaceful. Yet they remained enigmatically isolated, neither expanding beyond their home system nor engaging in further communication. Croc Cran, still determined to understand this mysterious species, had spent the years studying every scrap of information about humans that had been included in their original broadcast. He was particularly fascinated by their art, their music, their visual expressions, their literature. There was something simultaneously familiar and alien about it all, a paradox that ignited his creative passion. He had taken residence on a small, independent trading outpost near the borders of human space, hoping to gather more information from those brave or foolish enough to venture close to the now infamous Sol system. The outpost, named Vantari's Haven after its founder, had become a hub for black market intelligence about the humans. "They have eyes that can pierce your soul," claimed a Kokoi smuggler who had allegedly observed humans from afar. "And when they speak, their words carry multiple meanings, layers within layers." "Their ships appear primitive," added a Harbinger scout. "Until they suddenly aren't. I saw one transform from a rusted hulk into a sleek predator in seconds." Croc absorbed these accounts with a skeptical but open mind. Rumors and exaggerations were to be expected, but within them might lie kernels of truth. One night, as he was organizing his notes in his cramped quarters, Croc received an unexpected visitor. A hooded figure slipped through his door without triggering the security system, an impressive feat in itself. "Are you the artist who seeks knowledge of the Terrans?" The voice was modulated, impossible to identify by species or gender. Croc's body tensed with apprehension, but his curiosity prevailed. "I am." The figure placed a small data crystal on Croc's desk. "This contains footage recovered from the Serenity Infiltration Fleet's black boxes. It was obtained at great cost. Use it wisely." Before Croc could ask any questions, the mysterious informant vanished as silently as they had appeared. With trembling appendages, Croc inserted the crystal into his data terminal. The screen flickered to life, showing the interior of a Serenity stealth vessel. The chameleonic crew moved with practiced efficiency at their stations, their skin shifting colors in subtle patterns that reflected their emotional states. The recording's timestamp indicated it was from the final moments before the ship went dark. The Serenity captain was in the middle of dictating a mission log. "Approaching the Terran defense perimeter, cloaking systems operating at optimal capacity. No indication that we've been detected. According to our intelligence, their sensor technology should be incapable of—" The captain suddenly froze, staring at something off-screen with an expression of pure horror, an emotion rarely displayed by the disciplined Serenity. "There's something here," she whispered. "Inside the ship. How is that possible? We're in vacuum, at full stealth, with security protocols." The feed abruptly cut to static, then resumed a few seconds later. The bridge was empty. No signs of struggle. No bodies. No blood. Just abandoned stations and the soft beeping of instruments continuing their functions without operators. The final frame showed a simple message displayed on the main console, written in Sereni language. "We warned you." Croc shut down the terminal, his entire body quivering with a mixture of dread and exhilaration. The implications were staggering. The humans possessed technology, or perhaps abilities, far beyond what anyone had imagined. They could apparently board a fully cloaked vessel in the vacuum of space without breaching the hull, neutralize an entire crew without a fight, and leave without a trace. Yet they had chosen to warn rather than simply destroy. Why? What were they trying to communicate to the galaxy? The next day, Croc sought out more information at Vontari's Haven Central Marketplace, where intelligence was traded as freely as goods. He approached a booth operated by a Graxtall information broker, not the same cynical station keeper he had met a year ago, but one with a reputation for reliable data. "I need everything you have on human military capabilities," Croc said, sliding a substantial credit chip across the counter. The Graxtall's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of caution. "That's dangerous information to possess, artist. Those who look too deeply into human affairs have a habit of disappearing." "Nevertheless," Croc insisted, adding another credit chip to the first. The Graxtall hesitated, then swept the credits into a hidden compartment. "Very well, but we conduct this transaction in private." In a backroom shielded from surveillance, the information broker activated a secure holographic projector. "What I'm about to show you comes from multiple sources, some more reliable than others. Take it as speculation rather than fact." The hologram displayed a standard-looking human spacecraft, bulky, utilitarian, with visible weld marks and external pipes that suggested relatively primitive engineering. "This is what they want us to see," the Graxtall explained. "But witness what happened when a Katanaki destroyer encountered one of these primitive vessels." The hologram shifted to show grainy footage of a human ship drifting apparently powerless as a Katanaki warship approached. Suddenly, the human vessel seemed to flicker, as if momentarily phasing out of reality. When it stabilized, it was inside the Katanaki ship's shields, nestled against its hull like a parasite. "Impossible," Croc whispered. "No technology can penetrate Katanaki adaptive shielding." "Evidently, human technology can," the Graxtall replied dryly. "Watch what happens next." A small hatch opened on the human ship, and something too small to be clearly visible emerged and made contact with the Katanaki hull. Within seconds, the mighty warship broke apart as if sliced by an invisible blade, its pieces drifting apart in the vacuum. "What weapon could do that?" Croc asked, his artistic mind already trying to visualize the forces involved. "The leading theory is something the humans call a plasma knife, a concentrated energy field that can sever molecular bonds at a distance. But that's just a theory. No one has survived close enough contact to confirm it." The Graxtall switched off the hologram. "There's more, but it gets increasingly speculative. Some say the humans have mastered a form of technology that allows them to phase in and out of our reality at will, a perfect cloaking device that doesn't just hide them from sensors but removes them entirely from physical space." Is that even possible? Croc's scientific knowledge was limited to what was relevant for his art, but such technology seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. "A year ago I would have said no," the Graxtall admitted. "But now, I'm no longer certain what's possible. The humans are rewriting our understanding of the achievable." Croc left the information broker with more questions than answers, but one thing was becoming clear. The humans were not the naive newcomers they had initially appeared to be. Their broadcast hadn't been an act of innocent openness, but a calculated move in a game whose rules the rest of the galaxy didn't understand. As the second year of the human situation, as it had come to be called in diplomatic circles, began, the major powers of the galaxy adopted a new approach: containment. If the humans couldn't be conquered or negotiated with, they would be isolated. Travel to the Sol system was forbidden by all major governments. and a loose blockade was established at strategic hyperspace junctions leading to human space. But the humans, it seemed, had no interest in expansion. They remained within their home system, neither attempting to break the blockade nor establishing colonies beyond Sol. This paradoxical combination of overwhelming defensive capability and apparent lack of imperial ambition confused the galactic strategic community. Some theorized that the humans were content with their single star system, having perhaps developed technology that rendered resource scarcity obsolete. Others suggested they were building their strength for an eventual counteroffensive. The most radical theories proposed that what the galaxy was witnessing wasn't the behavior of a conventional civilization at all, but something entirely different, perhaps a collective intelligence or a species with a concept of self that defied standard understanding. Meanwhile, an unexpected development occurred in the cultural sphere. Despite, or perhaps because of, the mystery and danger surrounding them, human artistic expressions had become incredibly valuable. The original broadcast had included thousands of examples of their art, music, literature, and performance, and these were now being traded, studied, and even imitated across the galaxy. Kroc found his expertise on human art suddenly in high demand. Wealthy collectors sought his insights before purchasing human artifacts, and prestigious artistic institutions invited him to give lectures on human aesthetic principles. His own work, influenced by human concepts of perspective and emotion, received unprecedented acclaim. Yet he remained unsatisfied. Studying human art secondhand, through recordings and transmitted data, felt insufficient. He yearned to experience their creativity directly, to understand the beings who could create such moving expressions while also wielding terrifying power. This desire led Kroc to make a dangerous decision. He would attempt what no non-human had successfully done since the human situation began. He would try to make direct, peaceful contact with humanity. The opportunity arose when he learned of a small scientific vessel planning to skirt the edges of the Sol system to study the unusual radiation patterns that had been observed there since the destruction of the Katanaki fleet. The scientist in charge, a harbinger named Traz Volan, was an old acquaintance who owed Kroc a favor. "This is madness," Traz protested when Kroc proposed joining the expedition. "Even if we avoid human detection, which is unlikely given their demonstrated capabilities, what do you hope to accomplish?" "Understanding." Kroc replied simply, "Not of their weapons or their defenses, but of their spirit. What kind of beings create art of such beauty yet defend themselves with such ruthless efficiency? I need to know." Traz's compound eyes studied Kroc for a long moment. "Your artistic curiosity will be the death of you. But very well, you may join us. Just know that if we're intercepted, I will jettison you in an escape pod as a peace offering." Kroc's epidermis rippled with amusement. "I would expect nothing less." The scientific vessel, named Distant Whisper for its supposedly undetectable observation capabilities, departed from a secret location 2 weeks later. Its official mission was to study a nearby nebula, but once clear of monitored space, it changed course for the Sol system. As they approached the outer reaches of human territory, the entire crew grew tense. The ship's systems were operating in ultra-silent mode, with all non-essential functions powered down to minimize their energy signature. Traz and his science team worked feverishly at their instruments, recording every scrap of data they could about the space surrounding Sol. Kroc, meanwhile, spent hours at the observation portal, staring out at the star that nurtured the mysterious humans, trying to glean some insight from its golden light. On the third day of their clandestine observation, the ship's sensors detected something unusual, a debris field that hadn't been on any charts, drifting in the vast space between the orbits of Saturn and Uranus. Traz decided it was worth investigating, as it might contain remnants of the vessels that had disappeared during previous encounters with humans. As they cautiously maneuvered closer to the debris field, Kroc felt a growing sense of unease. The fragments were not random. They formed a pattern too regular to be natural, almost like a barrier or a membrane surrounding the inner system. "I don't like this," he told Traz. "It feels deliberate, like a boundary marker." The harbinger scientist dismissed his concern. "Debris doesn't have intent, artist. It merely floats where physics dictates. But as they penetrated deeper into the field, the ship's systems began to behave erratically. Instruments displayed contradictory readings, communications became garbled, and the navigation computer suddenly couldn't determine their position. "We're being jammed," the pilot announced, her voice tight with fear. Or something like jamming. "I've never seen interference like this." Traz finally showed signs of concern. "Reverse course. Get us out of this field immediately." The pilot tried to comply, but the engines only sputtered in response. "No propulsion! We're dead in space!" Panic began to spread among the crew as they realized they were now helpless in human territory. Croc, however, felt a strange calm descend upon him. If this was to be his end, at least it would come while pursuing understanding. A soft chime from the communications console drew everyone's attention. Despite the jamming, a message was coming through, text only, in Standard Galactic Common. "State your purpose." Traz looked at Croc, mandibles quivering with indecision. "What do we tell them?" Croc slithered to the console. "The truth. It's all we have." He typed a response. "Scientific observation and cultural appreciation. We mean no harm." Minutes passed in tense silence. Then another message appeared. "The artist may approach. Others must leave immediately." The crew turned to stare at Croc, whose epidermis had paled to a translucent white in shock. How did the humans know he was an artist? Had they somehow been monitoring his activities all along? Traz was the first to recover. "Well, it seems you've been granted an audience, Croc, and the rest of us have been spared, assuming we can get our engines working again." As if in response to his words, the ship's propulsion system suddenly came back online. "The humans are allowing you to leave," Croc realized. "But I must stay." "You can't be serious," Traz protested. "They'll kill you, or worse." Croc's body rippled with determination. "If they wanted me dead, we'd all be dead already. No, they've invited me specifically. I must accept." After much argument, a compromise was reached. Croc would take the ship's only escape pod and continue toward the inner system, while the distant Whisper and its crew would retreat to safe distance but remain nearby for 3 standard days. If Croc didn't return by then, they would presume him lost and depart. As Croc prepared the escape pod, Traz approached him with a small device. "A molecular analyzer," the scientist explained. "If you get the chance, use it to gather data on human biology. The scientific community would be eternally grateful." "Bissau." Croc accepted the device, though he had no intention of using it for such an invasive purpose. His quest was for understanding, not exploitation. The farewell was brief and awkward. None of the crew expected to see Croc alive again. As the escape pod detached from the main vessel and began its solitary journey deeper into the Sol system, Croc felt both terror and exhilaration in equal measure. For hours, the pod drifted through space, its minimal propulsion system barely adequate to maintain course. Croc occupied himself by reviewing his notes on human art and culture, preparing questions he hoped to ask if given the opportunity. Eventually, the pod's sensors detected a larger vessel approaching, a human ship, its design matching the primitive aesthetic they presented to the galaxy. It maneuvered alongside the pod and extended a docking tube. With no other options, Croc initiated the docking sequence. The airlock cycled, and he found himself facing the first human he, or any non-military alien, had seen in the flesh in over 2 years. The human was tall and slender, clad in a simple gray uniform with no visible weapons or defensive equipment. Its skin was a rich brown color, its head adorned with tightly curled black hair, and its eyes, those famous expressive eyes, were dark and watchful. "Croc Cran." The human said in perfect Zindari, the complex vowels reproduced flawlessly. "I am Commander Aisha Washington. Welcome to human space." Croc's translator was unnecessary, a fact that immediately impressed upon him the human's linguistic capabilities. He responded in Galactic Common, the diplomatic language of the galaxy. "Thank you for receiving me. I come seeking understanding, not secrets or advantages." Commander Washington's lips curved slightly upward, a smile. If Kroc recalled correctly from his studies of human expressions. "We know why you're here, artist. We've been monitoring your research into our culture for some time. Your appreciation for our art has not gone unnoticed." The revelation that humans had been aware of him specifically sent a shiver through Kroc's gelatinous form. How extensive was their intelligence network? How many other beings across the galaxy were they watching? "Please follow me," Washington continued, gesturing toward an interior doorway. "There's someone who wishes to meet you." Kroc slithered after the human through corridors that seemed deliberately designed to match the primitive image humans projected: exposed pipes, visible weld marks, utilitarian lighting. Either this was indeed their true technological level, or the deception went deeper than anyone had imagined. They arrived at a small chamber that appeared to be a meeting room. Inside, seated at a simple metal table, was another human. Older, judging by the silver in its hair and the lines on its face. Dr. Eleanor Chen, Minister of Extraterrestrial Cultural Exchange, Washington announced, then departed, leaving Kroc alone with the elder human. "Please, make yourself comfortable," Dr. Chen said, indicating a specially designed resting platform that would accommodate Kroc's physiology, another sign of how thoroughly the humans had studied his species. As Kroc settled onto the platform, he noticed something odd about the room. Despite its apparent simplicity, there was a subtle wrongness to the proportions, as if the space were somehow larger than it should be. "You've noticed our spatial distortion," Dr. Chen observed with apparent amusement. "Most visitors do. Eventually, it's one of our more practical technologies." Kroc decided directness was the best approach. "Your people have devastated fleets, vanished crews, and terrified the galaxy. Yet you invited me, an artist, to meet with you. Why?" Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. "Because you alone sought to understand us, not exploit or conquer us. Your interest in our art revealed a perspective rare among the galactic community, a desire for connection rather than advantage." "Is that why you broadcast your data to the galaxy? To seek connection?" The human nodded slowly. "Partially. We hope that by sharing ourselves openly, our beauty and our flaws, our achievements and our mistakes, we might establish peaceful relations based on mutual understanding." "Instead, you received invasion fleets and infiltrators," Kroc noted. "Yes." Dr. Chen's voice hardened. "We showed the galaxy our art, our music, our literature, and they saw only resources to be exploited, territory to be claimed, and naive prey to be devoured." A cold realization washed over Kroc. The broadcast was a test. Not intentionally, but it became one. The human leaned forward. "We simply revealed ourselves as we are. How the galaxy responded revealed much about them." "And now?" Kroc asked. "What are your intentions toward the wider community of species?" Dr. Chen's eyes, those expressive, emotional human eyes, reflected a complex mixture of sadness, determination, and something like hope. "That remains to be determined, but recent events may force our hand." Before Kroc could ask what events the human meant, a soft chime sounded, and Commander Washington's voice emerged from an unseen speaker. "Minister, it's time. The ceremony is beginning." Dr. Chen stood. "Would you care to observe Kroc Kran? It may help you understand our current situation." Curiosity overrode caution, as it often did for Kroc. "I would be honored." They proceeded to another chamber. This one dominated by a large view screen that displayed what appeared to be a massive space station orbiting a blue-green world. The station was clearly not of human design. Its architecture reflected the distinctive aesthetic of the Amora Kokoi Harbinger Alliance, one of the most powerful political entities in the galaxy. "What am I seeing?" Kroc asked. "The unveiling ceremony for the Alliance's new dreadnought, the Galactic Accord. It's their response to us, a display of overwhelming force meant to contain what they perceive as the human threat." Indeed, as Kroc watched, a massive vessel emerged from the space station's central dock, a warship of unprecedented size and apparent firepower. Even from the limited view provided by the screen, Kroc could tell it was the largest military vessel ever constructed by the Alliance, perhaps by any galactic power. Dignitaries from dozens of worlds could be seen on ceremonial platforms surrounding the dock. witnessing the unveiling of what was clearly intended as the ultimate deterrent against human expansion. "This is a direct challenge," Croc observed. "How will you respond?" Dr. Chen's expression remained neutral. "Watch." The view screen shifted to show a different angle, in the background of the ceremony, partially hidden by the massive bulk of the space station. A small ship drifted silently. It bore the distinctive utilitarian design of human vessels, appearing almost primitive compared to the gleaming behemoth being celebrated. As Croc watched in growing horror and fascination, the human ship seemed to flicker momentarily, that same visual distortion he had seen in the footage from the Graxtal information broker. When it stabilized, it was much closer to the dreadnought, nestled against its hull like a remora on a shark. "You're not actually going to—" Croc began, but fell silent as events unfolded with terrifying swiftness. A barely visible distortion extended from the human ship, like a heat wave in atmosphere, but in the vacuum of space, it touched the hull of the dreadnought, and then the massive warship split in two as cleanly as if cut by a surgeon's blade. There was no explosion, no dramatic flare, just the silent, horrifying spectacle of the galaxy's most powerful vessel being severed as easily as a piece of fruit. As the two halves drifted apart, atmosphere vented into space along with countless bodies and debris. The ceremonial platforms erupted in panic as dignitaries and military officials fled in terror. Within moments, the space around the station was filled with escaping ships, all desperately putting distance between themselves and the demonstration of human power. Through it all, the human vessel remained in position, making no move to attack the fleeing ships or the station itself. It had made its point with surgical precision. Croc turned to Dr. Chen, his entire body trembling with shock. "You just killed thousands of beings." The human's face showed genuine sadness. "Yes, an unfortunate necessity to prevent the deaths of millions." "How can you justify such an act? The Galactic Accord was not built for defense or peacekeeping, despite the Alliance's claims. Our intelligence confirmed it was designed specifically to launch a genocidal attack against Earth. Its first mission, scheduled to begin immediately after the ceremony, was to deploy a planetary destabilization device in our star." Croc's shock only deepened. "They plan to collapse your sun?" "Yes. The Alliance leadership decided that humanity represented an existential threat that justified extreme measures." Dr. Chen's voice was steady but tinged with genuine regret. "We chose the least destructive option available to us, neutralizing the immediate threat while sending an unmistakable message." Croc struggled to process the implications. The humans had not only detected and prevented a cataclysmic attack on their homeworld, but had done so with a display of power that would send shockwaves throughout galactic civilization. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now, the galaxy must decide how to proceed." Dr. Chen gestured to the view screen, which had switched to showing news feeds from across known space. Already, the destruction of the Galactic Accord was being reported with a mixture of horror, outrage, and fear. Some will call for unity against the human menace. Dr. Chen continued. Others will advocate for diplomatic engagement. The more practical powers will simply avoid provoking us further. "And what do humans want?" Croc pressed. "Domination? Revenge?" "Neither." For the first time, Dr. Chen seemed truly earnest, almost pleading for understanding. "We want what we always wanted, peaceful coexistence, the opportunity to share knowledge, art, and discovery. But we will not be subjugated, exploited, or exterminated." Croc considered this. The human response had been ruthless but proportional. They had targeted only the direct threat, not launched a counter-genocide. They had invited him, an artist, to witness their actions and understand their reasoning. These were not the behaviors of mindless destroyers. "I believe you," he said finally, "but will the galaxy, after this display, fear may overwhelm reason?" "That's why you're here," Croc cran. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. "We hope you might serve as a bridge, a voice of understanding and a chorus of fear. Not as our advocate, but as a truthful witness to who and what we really are." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy witnessed an unprecedented political upheaval. The alliance formally dissolved after revelations about the unauthorized plan to destroy Sol's star became public. Several high-ranking officials across multiple species were removed from power, either through legal processes or more direct means. Some simply disappeared, lending credence to rumors that human agents had infiltrated governments throughout known space. More disturbing were the reports of systematic decimation of pirate networks and slave-trading operations. Ships and bases that had preyed on weaker species for centuries were found abandoned or destroyed. Their operators vanished without trace. The message was clear. Predatory behavior would no longer be tolerated in a galaxy where humans were watching. Yet amidst this shadow war, a curious cultural phenomenon emerged. Human art, music, and literature, the very cultural artifacts that had been broadcast in their original transmission, became wildly popular across all species. Galleries devoted to human visual art opened on thousands of worlds. Symphony orchestras adapted human compositions for alien instruments and physiologies. Human literary forms inspired new generations of writers from hundreds of different species. Croc found himself at the center of this cultural renaissance. His first-hand account of meeting with humans, carefully edited to omit sensitive information, became the most read memoir in galactic history. His expertise on human artistic principles made him the foremost cultural interpreter between humanity and the wider community of intelligences. For their part, humans began to emerge cautiously from their self-imposed isolation. Small diplomatic missions appeared at major galactic centers, offering limited trade in cultural goods and non-military technology. They made no territorial claims beyond their home system and sought no political power in existing structures, presenting themselves merely as one civilization among many. But everyone knew the truth. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably. The galaxy now existed under the watchful eye of a species that had both the capability and the will to enforce its own brand of justice. Some called it peace through fear. Others, more optimistic, saw it as the birth pangs of a new era of genuine cooperation, one where predatory exploitation would no longer be the default mode of interaction between species. Croc preferred to reserve judgment. He had seen both the terrible power and the genuine desire for connection that defined humanity. Which aspect would ultimately define their role in galactic affairs remained to be seen. 3 years after the destruction of the Galactic Accord, Croc made a decision. He had maintained sporadic communication with Dr. Chen, exchanging thoughts on art and culture, but carefully avoiding political matters. Now, he felt it was time for a more meaningful exchange. He chartered a small vessel and piloted it himself toward the debris field that still surrounded the Sol system, that deliberate boundary between human space and the rest of the galaxy. As expected, his ship's systems began to fail as he penetrated the field, leaving him drifting powerless in space. He waited patiently until a human vessel approached and established communication. "Croc," came the familiar voice of Commander Washington. "You've returned?" "I have," he confirmed, "with a proposition." "We're listening." "I wish to establish a cultural exchange program, a legitimate, transparent bridge between human creativity and the wider galactic community. Not propaganda, not diplomacy, but genuine artistic dialogue." There was a pause before Washington responded. "Your proposal has merit. Stand by for docking." As his ship was drawn toward the human vessel, Croc reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He had sought novel inspiration for his art and found himself instead at the fulcrum of a galactic paradigm shift. The humans, with their contradictory blend of openness and lethality, had forever changed the cosmos. The airlock cycled, and he prepared to enter human space once more, not as an interloper or a spy, but as an invited guest, perhaps even a friend. The fear that had once gripped him was gone, replaced by a cautious optimism. As the inner door opened, he composed himself and offered the formal greeting he had carefully practiced in human language. "May I come in, please?" The response, when it came, held the promise of a new beginning.